David, a former captain in the army, suffered a gunshot wound whilst serving in Afghanistan. The bullet is still lodged in his right lung. This led to the end of his military career. Since then, he became captain of the UK Invictus Games team in 2016 and has won multiple medals. I'm in true admiration and delighted that he's agreed to give an address today to our amazing awardees. David, over to you.
Good afternoon. In such esteemed company, please give me 10 minutes or so to talk on the subject of courage. There are a couple of phrases that I've heard or read, repeated so many times and in so many different guises that I guess it has become accepted wisdom. I paraphrase, but I'm sure you'll recognize they must be either mad, stupid, or a liar if they claimed they were not afraid. And secondly, courage is not the absence of fear, but rather it is overcoming fear to perform greatly. Now, I'm probably in danger of annoying many esteemed members of this audience and this incredible institution, but I'm sure similar phrases have been uttered from this podium many times in this organisation's very, very long history. But I have struggled with these statements and wish to challenge the accepted wisdom by explaining it against my own experiences of several different dangerous situations. For in these dangerous situations, I have not experienced fear. And if you will allow me to reiterate to you, perhaps you can decide whether I am mad, stupid, or indeed a liar. Or perhaps you will join me in challenging that accepted wisdom. I was an infantry officer during the bad old days and the war on terror, and I had the genuine privilege of commanding men on operations in both Iraq and in Afghanistan. I was in Helmand province in 2009, a particularly brutal year for the British Army. In fact, its most bloody year throughout the whole campaign, with more personnel being extracted to recover at Selly Oak, on at Headley Court, or indeed being repatriated with those sad processions through Royal Wootton Bassett than in any other year. I had the sad honour of being there when 5 of those men fell, and of recovering them from the battlefield. All of them fell in a single infamous incident at a police station in Shinkalay that we simply designated as Blue 25. I'm sure few will remember it in detail, but perhaps the phrase rogue Afghan policeman might echo something in your memory. It was a truly horrific day, with more than a dozen other casualties on top of those who died, 9 of whom had multiple gunshot wounds incurred at extremely close range and were designated very seriously injured, VSI. What this means in military parlance is really if they're not on a surgery table within the hour, they will die. With the police station almost crippled, the Taliban closed in to overrun the position and potentially steal a high-profile victory. Thankfully, I was close by and able to get there with my small team of just 7 soldiers. We treated the wounded, extracted them for treatment, and recovered the bodies of the fallen. The casualty evacuations were arduous, with so few of us able to carry so many. Most of my men were committed to the defence, so a small number of us repeatedly ran in and out of the compound to the waiting helicopter, under threat of the enemy gathering nearby to press their advantage. And press they did. We fought them all afternoon and well into the evening, preventing the position from being overrun by repeated waves of Taliban assault. The business of warfare doesn't stop because you've had a bad day at the office. And we were back at it the next day and the next day and the next. 2 weeks later, conducting a fighting patrol with the intent of picking a fight and pushing the enemy from a patch of recently won territory, I found myself lying on the banking of a ditch, cigarette in one hand and a device called ICOM in the other. ICOM could tap into the enemy force's unsophisticated radio system, and so we were well aware we could hear them. They were waiting for us in the next field. As I lay there on that banking, one of my corporals came and lay next to me. We took our last draws on our cigarettes, and he said, "You know, boss, if we just turn left here, we'll be back at the compound in 20 minutes and we can brew up." Flicking our cigarettes into the fetid water of that ditch, turned to him and said, "Yeah, you know we're not going to do that." 5 minutes later, bullets arced across our frontage and engaged my front section of Afghan troops. I still had 2 uncontacted sections to my rear, and my intention was to take them round the right flank of the position and destroy the enemy. First, I pulled my machine gun crew up and placed it at the corner of a compound. As that machine gun started blaring away, a second enemy position opened up. We didn't know they were there. They were right in front of us, about 200 meters away, and it was a sniper team. The first round cracked past my head, and the second round slammed into my chest. Weighing 100 kilos, I don't even notice. I'm quite a big guy, and with about 35 kilos on my back, that tiny piece of metal picked me up and threw me back about 3 or 4 meters. I was sprawled in the mud with rounds falling around me, and so I crawled into a ditch full of water, and at this point I realized that round had paralyzed me temporarily down the right side, and I sank like a stone to the bottom. Crossing that killing area, as we call it, where the rounds are falling, I felt a splash come down next to me as I sat at the bottom of the ditch, reconsidering my life choices. And as that splash came down, strong hands pulled me up to the top of the water, and it was a young soldier from Fiji called Lance Corporal Fong. He'd crossed that killing area to get to me. And then a second soldier did exactly the same, crossed that killing area, got to me, jumped into the water, my medic, Private Ansar from Ghana. They pulled me out, saved my life. I got all the treatment I needed, and I was picked up by a helicopter and extracted from the battlefield to recover. As I was recovering in ICU back in Birmingham, an old university friend came in. I hadn't seen him for years. He joined the army a year before me. He got shot in the chest a year before me. And he came in and we reconnected. And he told me that himself paralyzed down the right side due to a gunshot wound, same as me. Another chap called Jacko Van Gass, who'd lost his arm to an RPG in Afghan. Another guy called Guy Disney, lost his leg to an RPG. And another chap, a Welshman, whose back had been broken, was told he was never going to walk again. Those 4 Muppets thought that they'd be the perfect team to make it to the North Pole. Prince Harry agreed with them and joined them on that expedition. And in watching them, I was utterly inspired. And from my hospital bed and in my recovery, I was motivated and thought, there's got to be something in that. There's got to be something in that. I've got to be on the next expedition. I don't care what it is. So when they got back, I phoned Martin and said, I don't care where you're going, but I'm coming with you on the next one. You found me, you're still in bed. I was like, I don't care. I'll be there. And 18 months after nearly dying in that ditch in Afghanistan, we were standing on top of the 8th highest mountain in the world, Mount Manaslu. It was those experiences of sports recovery and adventurous challenge that led me to what I do today, helping others engage in sports as part of their recovery with the Invictus Games. So what am I? Mad, stupid, or a liar? I tell you, I was not afraid whilst conducting any of these crazy acts or others that we don't have time to talk about today. But I also tell you that I'm not fearless. Fear, in fact, abject terror to the point of reducing me to a petrified state or a blubbering, sweaty mess, was a common companion in the years following these events. But at the time of putting my boots in either the dust or the snow, fear was absent. the overwhelming sensations that I felt were those of duty and its dark sister, shame. Shame exists on the flip side of duty, and what pulled me out of every trench to face incoming rounds, what propelled me to appear calm when faced with a bloody mess of mass casualties under fire, what drove me to venture into some of the world's most beautiful but deadly spaces was the thought, what will people think of me if I acted otherwise? A sense of duty pulled me into those incidents, and a sense of shame ensured I did not falter. I'm not sure I've ever expressed that publicly, so thank you for the open forum therapy session. But I wonder if there is a difference between my experiences and of those humbling acts that we will hear about today. I volunteered to place myself in those situations. I knew what was asked of me. I knew what was expected of me. I was trained and I was prepared. Perhaps that built the sense of duty and set the conditions for the presence of shame as a guiding handrail and inoculated me somewhat to the cold hand of fear. But the amazing people being recognized today were thrust into their experiences without the same levels of warning or preparedness, without the same carefully crafted and indoctrinated senses of duty that the British Army is so good at doing, and without the same levels of training, which makes their feats all the more impressive. And I wonder if they felt the crushing and near paralyzing sensation of fear and carried on regardless. Because if they did, unlike myself, that would make them unequivocally courageous. Thank you.